And we are back with the fifth and the final segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this final segment, we are going to be talking about how tall is Kevin Durant, because that was something that was being talked about, and I'm just going to go ahead and move the title just a little bit. That was something that was being talked about, over the 2 days ago and going into yesterday and then going into today. It was a really big discussion because Kevin Durant, he doubled down on saying that he was 6'9", but when you look at this image right here, you can clearly see that he's way taller than 6'9". I mean, when you look at his height compared to Anthony Davis, Anthony Davis is listed as 6'10". But you can clearly see that Kevin Durant is just a few inches taller than him. And when you look at Bam Adebayo, he is actually listed as 6'9". But, if you look at Kevin Durant is clearly taller than him, right? But Kevin Durant ended up doubling down on his height being 6'9", and was even alleging that those other players that I just mentioned were actually lying about their height. But that's just not true whatsoever. So if you guys paid attention to Kevin Durant's height since he was drafted, right? He was listed as 6'9", but recently, there's a lot of debate and there's a lot of thought that he's not actually 6'9", but rather, 6'11", or maybe even 7 feet tall. There's a huge debate on just how tall Kevin Durant actually is, and him doubling down only accentuates that debate even more. But the reality is that KD, he's at the very least, he's 6'10", but at the very most, he's 7 feet tall. But why would Kevin Durant lie about his height? Well, the reason being was because Kevin Durant, when he was drafted, he was drafted during a time where it was it was illegal for big men to shoot jump shots, right? Back in the 2010s, it was almost unheard of seeing someone that was 7 feet tall shoot a jump shot. And Kevin Garnett was one of the very few exceptions to those players. Dirk Nowitzki was also a rare exception to one of those tall players that could shoot the three or shoot a jump shot despite being so tall. It was unheard of back in that time. But now, with how the NBA has sort of been more lenient with the shooting, it seems more apparent for someone that's really that tall to be able to shoot a jump shot. I mean, we have 7'4" Victor Wembanyama shooting 3-pointers, for crying out loud. But how tall is Kevin Durant? He's 6'11", 6'10", maybe somewhere around that, because the reason why he lied about his height was because at the time he wanted to be listed as a small forward and didn't want to play power forward, because playing power forward at the time, playing big, would have restricted his game. And Kevin Durant, he knew exactly just the type of player that he could be and the caliber of a scorer he could be. And being limited to just, setting screens and just running a pick and roll is something that he didn't want to do. So, which is why he, made the decision to sort of not really lie about his height, because that's another stipulation. A lot of people think he lied about his height. He did now recently, because he's definitely not 6'9" now. But I believe when he was getting drafted, because he was relatively young when he was getting drafted. I'm just going to make sure I was correct. Kevin Durant's age on draft night, I believe he was around 20 years old when he got drafted in 2006. Now, or in 2007, I should say. I apologize. Kevin Durant, age in 2006. I'm just making sure again, he was about 18 years old in 2006, right? So males, they take a longer time to stop growing, right? They usually stop growing at around 21 years old. So what I think happened was that, he was listed at 6'9" when he was drafted, but over the years, as he, until he turned 21, he continued to start growing, and he ended up being 6'11", 6'10", with shoes on or without shoes on, whatever you want to call it, right? But he continued to say that his height was 6'9", so that way he could avoid playing the power forward, because he didn't want to play the power forward and be limited to just being a screener and a popper, because he knew that he can do so much more for a team if he was more of a versatile scorer, and it ended up working out well for him. So the reality of Kevin Durant's height is that he's 6'10", 6'11", and he just didn't want to be relegated to playing the power forward or the big man, because not only would that have been a mismatch on the defense, I mean, let's face it, Kevin Durant is incredibly skinny for an NBA player. And if he was supposed to guard the big man or a power forward at the time, it would have been a very difficult task for him, as opposed to maybe guarding a small forward, which would have been a lot easier since he is a lot quicker on his feet than most of NBA big men that are 6'10" or 6'11". So that's sort of the reason why he ended up lying about his height, or just, and again, I don't really think he was lying about his height, because again, in 2006, when he was 18, he was listed at 6'9", but he just ended up getting taller as the years progressed. So that's sort of hopefully that ends the debate on just how tall Kevin Durant actually is, because I feel like a lot of, not the casual fans of the NBA, they already know that Kevin Durant is at least 6'10" and at most 7 feet tall. But, people just don't really care, because he's just that good of a scorer and he's that good of a shot creator and things of that nature, right? But that is all I have for you guys on this 5th segment. So with that, we are out of time. Thank you so much for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. And as usual, please remember to use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment. That is gsmcpodcast.net. It really ups the show, makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. That is all I have for you today on this final segment. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Nelson. Enjoy your weekend, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't